In the heart of a bustling Nigerian town, where the scent of roasting corn and the vibrant colors of Ankara fabric filled the air, a young woman named Amaka walked with a heavy heart. The world, once a symphony of joy, had become a muted, colorless place after the sudden loss of her mother. Days bled into weeks, each one a gray shadow of the last, as she searched for a flicker of hope, a reason to believe in the light again. It was on a humid Tuesday afternoon, while wandering through the crowded market, that a sound pierced through her grief. A chorus of joyous singing, so powerful it seemed to shake the very ground beneath her feet. Curiosity, a long-dormant emotion, stirred within her. She followed the sound to a massive, modern building that had sprung up almost overnight, a stark contrast to the old, weathered shops surrounding it. A banner, shimmering with gold lettering, proclaimed it the Citadel of Abundant Blessings. This was the ministry of Prophet Tobe, a man whose name was whispered on every street corner, a charismatic leader who promised miracles as easily as a vendor sold ripe mangoes. Drawn by an invisible force, Amaka stepped inside, her eyes widening at the spectacle before her. The hall was a dazzling display of wealth and energy. Lights flashed in rhythm with the thunderous music, people danced with an ecstatic frenzy, and the air buzzed with an electrifying energy. On a grand, elevated stage stood Prophet Tobe himself. He was a vision in a crisp white suit, his voice a smooth, captivating melody as he spoke of instant breakthroughs and divine favor. He promised to break generational curses, to unlock financial windfalls, and to heal the sick. For Amaka, who felt broken and cursed by sorrow, his words were a soothing balm, a promise of the very hope she had been so desperately seeking. Something about the polished perfection felt slightly off, like a song played just a fraction out of tune, but she pushed the feeling aside, desperate to believe. As weeks turned into months, Amaka became a devoted follower. She gave generously, her small savings dwindling with each seed of faith she sowed, hoping to reap a harvest of peace. The vibrant services became her refuge, the prophet's words her daily bread. She felt a sense of belonging she hadn't felt since her mother's passing. Yet, as she drew closer to the inner circle of the ministry, a subtle disquiet began to creep into the corners of her mind, like a shadow lengthening in the twilight. Strange things began to happen, small at first, but unsettling. She would sometimes hear hushed whispers in the corridors after a service, voices that would fall silent the moment she approached. At night, her dreams were filled with odd, fragmented images, flashing lights, counting hands, and the prophet's face, his charismatic smile looking more like a grimace. More tangibly, money began to mysteriously disappear from the church's donation boxes, with no clear explanation ever given, dismissed as administrative costs for kingdom expansion. Her childhood friend, Chuka, a thoughtful and grounded artisan who carved beautiful wooden sculptures, watched her transformation with growing concern. He was a man of quiet faith, one who believed God's voice was found not in thunderous pronouncements, but in the stillness of the heart. "Amaka," he said one evening, his brow furrowed with worry as they sat outside his workshop, "be careful. All that glitters is not gold. Discernment is a gift, and you must use it." Amaka, however, was too swept up in the intoxicating promises of the Citadel to heed his warning, dismissing his words as the skepticism of an outsider who just didn't understand. The turning point came late one Friday night, after a particularly draining all-night prayer vigil. The hall was empty, the dazzling lights were off, and an eerie silence had replaced the usual cacophony of praise. Amaka had stayed behind to help tidy up, a task she often volunteered for to feel closer to the ministry's heart. As she was sweeping near the grand altar, her broom knocked against a section of the wall that was cleverly concealed behind a thick, velvet curtain. It sounded hollow. Puzzled, she pushed the curtain aside and her breath caught in her throat. There, flush with the wall, was a door she had never seen before, with no handle and a heavy, industrial-looking lock. As she leaned closer, a low murmur of voices reached her ears from behind the solid wood. They were not praying. The tone was clipped, businesslike. She pressed her ear against the cool surface, straining to make out the words. One voice, unmistakably Prophet Tobe's, was sharp and impatient. "The numbers from this week are good, but they could be better," he said. "We need to stage another big testimony for Sunday." The one with the blind woman worked wonders for last month's pledges. Another voice, unfamiliar and gruff, replied, "Don't worry, Prophet. I have a new cripple ready. He's a convincing actor. It will cost you, though." A cold dread washed over Amaka, so intense it made her feel nauseous. The dazzling lights, the ecstatic dancing, the tearful testimonies. Were they all just part of an elaborate performance? Was this Citadel of Abundant Blessings nothing more than a stage, and its congregation an unsuspecting audience? The whispers she'd heard, the odd dreams, Chuka's warnings, it all crashed down on her with the force of a tidal wave. Her search for hope had led her into a den of deception. Her grief had been manipulated, her faith exploited. Standing there in the silent, empty hall, a new resolve hardened within her. The quiet, grieving girl was gone. In her place was a woman who would not be a victim. She had to know the full truth, to see what lay behind that locked door, no matter what it cost her. She would uncover the secrets of the Citadel, not just for herself, but for every other soul searching for light in the darkness. The air grew thick and heavy as Amaka pushed the mysterious door open. A wave of musty air, smelling of old paper and stale secrets, rushed out to greet her. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the suffocating silence of Prophet Tobe's private chambers. She had expected to find something terrifying, perhaps a dark shrine or a symbol of some unspeakable ritual. But the reality that confronted her was far more chilling, not because of supernatural horror, but because of its cold, calculated deception. The small, windowless room was lined with shelves, not filled with ancient spiritual texts, but with neat stacks of ledgers and files. Her eyes, wide with a mixture of fear and dawning comprehension, scanned the labels, testimony records, seed faith payments, partnership pledges, land purchases. Curiosity, stronger now than her fear, propelled her forward. She pulled out a thick ledger, the one marked Testimony Records, and opened it. The neat, precise handwriting detailed names, dates, and afflictions, but next to them were columns she didn't understand: actor, payment, script. A cold dread washed over Amaka as she flipped through the pages. She recognized a name: Mr. Johnson, the man who had been miraculously healed of a 20-year-long paralysis just last Sunday. The congregation had erupted in thunderous praise, their faith soaring as they witnessed the impossible. But here, in this book of lies, was the truth. Actor, Musa Bello, it read. Payment, 50,000 naira. Beside it was a note: to walk with a limp for 2 weeks prior. Rehearse collapse at the third prayer point. Amaka felt sick to her stomach. She remembered Musa Bello. He was a struggling artisan from the market down the road, not a man afflicted with paralysis. She grabbed another file, this one detailing the miracle money, testimonies that often sent the congregation into a frenzy of giving. It was all there in black and white. Bank alerts were faked, stories were fabricated, and actors were paid a small fraction of the massive seed sown by hopeful believers who desperately wanted the same breakthrough. The prophet wasn't speaking with God. He was running a business, a sophisticated enterprise built on the crushed hopes and blind faith of his flock. He wasn't a man of God. He was a master manipulator, a puppeteer pulling the strings of their devotion. Amaka's mind flashed back to her own desperation, the day she had sold her late mother's gold jewelry to sow a dangerous seed for a child. Prophet Tobe had looked her in the eye, his voice resonating with divine authority, and promised her that her womb would be open within 3 months. It had been a year. The shame and foolishness she felt burned hotter than any anger. He had preyed on her deepest pain, her most vulnerable desire, and turned it into profit. The expensive cars he drove, the lavish suits he wore, the very building they were in, it was all funded by the tears and sacrifices of people like her. Just then, she heard footsteps approaching. Panic seized her, but it was quickly replaced by a steely resolve. She couldn't run. She couldn't hide. The truth in her hands was too heavy to carry alone. The door creaked open, and Prophet Tobe stood there, his usual serene smile faltering as he saw her, the open ledger in her hands, and the shattered trust in her eyes. "Amaka," he began, his voice a low warning. "This is not a place for you. You have seen what you should not have seen." But Amaka was no longer the timid, broken woman who had first walked into his church. The quiet desperation had been replaced by a calm, righteous anger. During the Wednesday evening service, as Prophet Tobe stood on the altar, his voice booming with manufactured passion, Amaka walked steadily down the center aisle. A hush fell over the congregation as all eyes turned to her. She reached the front, standing just below the lavish, gold-trimmed pulpit. "Prophet," she said, her voice clear and unwavering, ringing through the silent hall. "You told us that truth is the foundation of faith. Today, I want to share a truth with everyone." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Prophet Tobe's eyes narrowed, a flicker of panic behind his confident facade. He signaled to his ushers, but they hesitated, confused by Amaka's composure. "Last Sunday," Amaka continued, her voice gaining strength, "we celebrated the healing of Mr. Johnson, who was paralyzed for 20 years. Cheers and hallelujahs started to erupt, but she held up a hand. "His real name is Musa Bello. He is a healthy man. He was paid 50,000 naira to pretend." A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. She went on, revealing the fake miracle money alerts, the staged prophecies, the entire web of deceit she had uncovered in the secret room. With every word, the foundation of their belief began to crumble. Doubt, then confusion, and finally a slow, simmering anger spread across the faces in the pews. They looked from Amaka's courageous face to the prophet's, which was now pale and slick with sweat. In that moment, the people began to see. They saw how their desperation for miracles, for quick fixes to life's painful problems, had made them blind. They had willingly handed over their ability to think, to question, to discern, all for the promise of a breakthrough. Prophet Tobe tried to rebuke her, calling her a demon sent to disrupt the house of God, but his words were hollow. The spell was broken. They were no longer an enchanted crowd, but a gathering of individuals waking from a long, expensive dream. The story of Prophet Tobe's fall from grace spread like wildfire. But for Amaka, it wasn't about revenge. It was about liberation. In the months that followed, she found a quiet peace she had never known. She didn't find it in a grand cathedral or at the feet of a charismatic leader, but within herself. She started a small support group for others who had been hurt by spiritual manipulation, creating a safe space for them to heal and talk. She didn't preach. She listened. She didn't offer miracles. She offered understanding. Amaka helped them learn to rebuild their faith, not on the shifting sands of signs and wonders, but on the solid rock of truth, personal responsibility, and genuine love. Her life became a testament that the most profound spiritual journey is the one that leads you back to your own inner wisdom. If you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Stay curious and stay safe.